Hi, welcome to the Mathemagic channel. Today we answer this classic Math Olympiad problem. How many of the factors of 480 are even? Let's go. So when you approach a question like this, it's important to have a very good strategy. And since we have some factor theorems, such as finding the number of factors, and this is a question that says how many, it would only make sense that we would use that theorem to help ourselves. Now, in a previous video, we covered how we find the number of factors in a given number. So I would recommend, if you're not familiar with that theorem, to go and watch that video. And in doing so, we're going to have to use the prime factorization of 480. So here's a good strategy since we're looking for the number of even factors of 480. 480 has a lot of 2's in it because it has 48, and 48 is full of 2's. And so they're probably not going to be that many odd factors, but they're going to be a lot of even numbers, and counting them would take you a long time. And remember, when you're doing Math Olympiads, you want to go a little bit fast. So here's an idea. Instead of counting the even numbers, why don't we count the odd factors and subtract them from the total number of factors? So here's a solid strategy for this question. Find all the factors of 480, find how many are odd, and subtract those from the total amount of factors that 480 has. Let's go ahead and do that. So first you'll need to factorize 480, and in order to do that you can either do a factor tree or you could just break the number down. So what is the prime factorization of 480? Well, 480 is 10 times 48. That's simple enough. And 10 is good because 10 is 5 times 2. 48 is 16 times 3. So we could just start with that. So 5 times 2 times 16 times 3. 5 is prime, 2 is prime. Remember, we're looking to break it down into prime numbers. 16 is a power of 2, so we should be able to work with that. It's 2 to the power 4. And then 3 is already prime. So all we need to do here is to break 16 down. And so we're going to have our next line, which is 5 times 2 times 2 to the 4 times 3. Now we have a 2 to the power 1 and a 2 to the power 4. So if we combine those together, we'll get 2 to the power 5. So our prime factorization looks like 2 to the power 5 times 3 times 5. Okay, so 2 to the power 5 times 3 times 5. Notice I've left 3 to the power 1 and 5 to the power 1 so that you don't forget that these are to the power 1, because in the formula we're going to use the powers of your prime factors, since that's the formula we're using. Now you can check that this is indeed equal to 480. 2 to the power 5 is 32. 32 times 3 is going to be 96, and then 96 times 5, well, to multiply a number by 5 we can halve it, so that's not too difficult, and add a 0. 96 times 5, half of 96 is 48. If I add a 0 to that, that's 480. So that's a quick check to make sure that we're not making a mistake and that our prime factorization is good. And it looks like the prime factorization is good, and we can move on. So that's good. So how many factors does 480 have then? Well, 480 is 2 to the 5 times 3 times 5. We're going to take the powers and we're going to add 1 to them. So this is your formula. If you haven't seen the previous video, I recommend you go and watch it. You find the prime factorization, you add 1 to each one of the exponents. So we're going to do 5 plus 1, 1 plus 1, and 1 plus 1. So these are the exponents, the powers. And we're going to multiply those numbers by each other. This will give us the number of factors of 480. So finding the number of factors, 5 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1. If you're not familiar with this formula, practice it a little bit. Take some numbers, break them down into prime factors using factor trees until you're very comfortable finding the powers, adding 1, and finding the number of factors of a given number. So in this case, we have 24 factors. Okay, well, that's great. So we know that 480 has 24 factors. That's going to be useful. If we remember our strategy, we want to find the number of factors and take away the odd number of factors to find the even number of factors. So we're going to subtract the odd factors from our 24 factors. Now, it's made up of 2 to the power 5, 3, and 5. To generate an odd number, you can only multiply an odd number by an odd number. As soon as you multiply 3 by 2, immediately the result is even. So the only way that you're going to generate odd factors here is to do odd times odd. So the most obvious odd factor is going to be 1, and then there's 3, and then there's 5. And then the only other factor that you'll have is 3 times 5, which is 15. So actually we can pretty much see here that we already have 4 odd factors. You could actually use the formula. You could simply say 3 to the power 1 times 5 to the power 1. You take the 1 and add 1, and take the other one and add 1, and see that it generates 4 odd factors. So this is just using the formula within the formula. Again, that tells you the number of factors, right? So since this is the formula we're practicing, it's nice to recognize that it's in there. But really, it's quite easy to list them and say it's 1, 3, 5, and 15. Any other number is going to be multiplied by 2. And if it's multiplied by 2, it's not going to be odd. It'll be even. And so the number of even factors of 480 is 24. So that's all the factors of 480 minus the 4 odd ones, which gives us 20 even factors. And this is the kind of work that you need to be able to do Math Olympiad factor practice. So we can be super happy that we managed to do it. Oh, we've got like a happy emoji and a tick mark, and we're spinning. Pat on the back. Well done, everybody. Good job. If you managed to understand this question, I suggest you practice. How many odd factors does a number have? How many even factors does a number have? Sometimes it's easier to take the contrary statement when there's way more even factors than odd numbers. Find the odd ones and subtract it from the total, right? That kind of makes sense. All right, everyone. Thanks for following the Mathemagic channel. We really appreciate your support. Make sure to like and subscribe. Remember, being a nerd is super cool, and math comes easy with Mathemagic. We'll see you on the next one.